Hello friends, today we are going to study about CAS 5 that is effective from 1st April 2010. Cost accounting standards on determination of average equalized cost of transportation. So what it is CAS 5, and like for any business transportation it plays very important role in identify the transportation cost, and that will help to identify the cost of production. So transportation cost plays a very important role, like we can say we have purchased a material, raw material for manufacturing a product from some place, and from bringing that material in our own manufacturing sector, where we are going to manufacture our products. That buying the material from one place to another includes the transportation cost, which will be going to add in our material cost also, from where the total material cost will be included. So this means it will be added in a product cost. So product cost also. So what is transportation cost? This is also the main thing. It is also very important critical cost that specifically, as I said, it's incurred in manufacturing industry. So transportation cost can be various type. It can you can transport your goods by air, road, by water, by train. So now the question arises that how can we rationalize this transportation cost and allocate the various costs to a particular cost centers in a equitable manner, so that we can have no discrepancies in a costing record. So this is the cost accounting standards tell us how to recognize the transaction cost in your cost sheet, and it also tells you a very specific thing that how to calculate the average cost of transportation. So if you notice that the aim of the cost accounting standard is not the cost of transportation only, it is actually the average cost of transportation. So it is to be noted that averaging is to be done, equalization is to be done of cost of transportation of cost of transportation. CAS 5 also gives you a hint towards that not determining the individual transaction cost, like as I said, that separately, but to make an average of all the transportation costs which are incurred by the company for a particular period of time, like say 1 year. So the cost should be allocated on the basis of average of all these, but not individually, or not individually. So transportation cost should be taken as a whole as an average while allocating the cost sheet or to the respective cost center. So objective is to bring uniformity and the application of principles and method used in the determination of average of equalized transportation, as I said, to prescribe the system to be followed for maintenance of record, for like CAS 5 also said, for the collection of cost of transportation of cost, and second is allocation and apportionment of transportation cost over the various products or locations, cost centers, with respect to the guidelines provided by the CAS 5, to provide transparency in the determination of cost of transportation. And these are the scopes. There are 6 scopes, like determination of average transportation cost for claiming the deduction for arriving at accessible value, insurance claim valuation, working out claim for freight subsidiary, administered price mechanism of freight, determination of inward freight cost, computation of freight included in the value of inventory, for accounting on inventory or valuation of stock hypothecated with bank, financial institution, etc. So these are the important definition I have picked for you, some of the transaction. Let's go through with this. Cost of transportation. What is there is included in transportation cost. Transportation cost is freight plus cartridge plus transit insurance plus any other incidental charges. Transit insurance is to avoid any loss against any damages. So before transporting our goods, we have to make insurance to transit insurance, so that if any damage or any anything happen, then the insurance company can recover that loss of that. And transportation cost can be internally paid and externally paid. Internally paid means that if we are having our own fleet and we are sending our goods in our own vehicle, that means that is we are paying it internally. If we have hired the vehicle fleet from outside, that is on rent on lease, that is called externally paid. Second one is inward transportation cost, that is incurred in connection with material good received at factory. What means that is the purchase or place of sale, place of use or sale or removal, that is from shifting from one godown to another. Then third one is outward transportation cost, is the transportation expenses incurred in connection with the sale of delivery of material. This is at the time of sale where goods are sold or removed. Then the cartridge and freight. Let's discuss first cartridge and freight. Cartridge is expensive incurred for movements of goods covering. The cartridge is covering 2 points. That is important point, that is short distance, and other one is further transportation, that is also called a secondary transport. Like for example, we can say any business have to incur the two types of cost, that is the cost which is incurred to transport the goods from factory to the godown warehouse of the wholesaler, or second one is the transport the goods from wholesaler warehouse to the market. So here production will go in truck in big size, so they are majorly taking the route or moving from like big highways, national highways so however, when you transport the goods from warehouse of wholesaler or to the retailer or to the ultimate consumer, they used to travel throughout short distance road rather than highway. So they move into the interior of your cities, that is within your areas they are moving into the cities, that calls as a short distance. So this transaction cost at short distance term as the known as the cartridge. Apart from that, a freight payment made to an outside agency moving goods from one place to another is a freight. If you are moving your goods within the house, then it is not called a freight. Like we take one example of for better understanding about the cartridge and freight. Like I have taken three location. First is factory, second is location X, third is location Y. Distance between the factory and location X is 5 kilometer. Guys, remember this. I'm just taking this example. And distance from factory to location X is 5 kilometer. And from location X to location 5, the distance will be 250 kilometer. Okay. If I transport my product from factory to location X and further at location Y, this is my chain. Okay. So where the goods will be loaded and will go further at location Y. So this is the chain 5. So moving goods from location X, factory to X, X to Y. So there will be my expenses going to cover. And how we have to treat that expense, let's discuss. So from factory to location X, it will called as cartridge because it is for short distance. We have paid transportation cost, that is moving into the interior of the cities only. Like for example, you can say like this also, if you have purchased your AC within your area only. For that you have hired some 3-tier tempo to bringing that AC into your house. So that cost you have paid, that is a local cost within your area you are saying, that is called cartridge. Same like when you are sending your products over a long distance for your product, for example from that is location X to Y, that is 250 kilometer. The charge we are paying, that is transportation cost, is called as freight. So as simple as it, for shorter distance it is cartridge and for long distance it will be freight. So two distinguished factors of cartridge is that it is seen as covering as a short distance. It cannot be for long distance. And number two, it will be used for further transportation, which means it should be used not as a primary source of transport but for a secondary source of transport. So the furtherance of transport is to be done by the cartridge only. So from here, the mainly cost accounting standards 5 says that you have to maintain proper sheet. You can say proper cost sheet. It should be maintained in which your total transaction cost related each and every expenditure should be recorded. And what should be recorded in your that sheet, like name of the transportation, address, transporter address, email, GST number, truck number of the transporter, and invoices also, payment details should be there in your records as per the principles of cost accounting standards 5. So this is the cartridge and freight basic area. Equalized transportation cost means average transportation cost incurred during a specific period. That average cost of transportation over a specific period, like a year, on an average how much transaction cost is incurring, is called the equalized transportation cost. And one more thing, transit insurance cost is the amount of premium to be paid to cover the risk of loss, damage to the goods in transit. Before transiting our goods, we have to pay some premium to the insurance company to cover the risk or loss, damage if the goods in our transit. And last, equalized freight means average freight. Then the maintenance of record. The proper record shall be maintained for recording the actual cost of transportation, showing each of element of cost such as freight, cartridge, transit, insurance, and other after adjustment for recovery of transportation. Abnormal cost relating to transaction. If there is any abnormal cost identified and recorded, that will be exclusion for computation of average transportation. In case of manufacturing, if they are having their own fleet, if you are having your own resource, on truck, on trolley transport, and you are transporting your goods from one place to another in your own vehicle own facility, then what happened in this record? It's because proper record shall be maintained to determine the actual operating cost of vehicle, showing details of various elements of cost such as salaries and wages of drivers, cleaners, others, cost of fuel, lubricant, grease, amortized cost of tire, battery, repairs and maintenance, depreciation of the vehicles. For depreciation of vehicle, asset register should be maintained for determining of depreciation and amortization of that cost. So distance covered and trips made, goods hauled and transported to the depot. Okay. Depot is where the large warehouse where we keep our products. Okay. In case of higher transport, charges, you have taken vehicles or fleet on rent or lease, then you need to dispatch of goods, complete details shall be recorded as the date of dispatch, type of transport used, description of the goods, destination of buyer, name of consignee, challan number, quantity of goods in terms of weight or volume, distance involved, amount paid, etc. Fine. Records shall be maintained separately for inward and outward transportation of cost, details of and separate records should also be made for identification of transport goods towards inward of material and at the time of purchase and at the time of sale. You have to maintain separate accounts for transportation of cost. And if you are moving the factory to depot and thereafter we are also moving, that separately sheet should be maintained. If you are carrying a material for product to byproduct, job worker or anything and returning it back, then there is also a transportation cost included, that should be also separate maintained. Record of transportation cost for goods involved exclusively for trading activity shall be maintained separately. So these are the records that should be recorded separately in this. So treatment of cost also, inward and outward cost. Inward, where you will club the inward transportation cost in your cost sheet, it should be form part of the procurement of material because it is an essential part of your material. Outward transportation cost shall be included in the cost of sale of goods because the outward transportation cost is an beneficial in sale of the finished goods. Then the treatment of cost is also the following basis. In order to priority for apportion of outward cost depending upon the nature of product unit. It can be measured in weight, volume, ton, unit, equivalent unit, value of goods, percentage of usage of goods. For determining the transportation cost per unit, distance is the major factor for to arrive at weightage everywhere. Abnormal and non-recurring acts shall not be form of, like penalty, detention, demurrage, So there will be not part of the, and the cost sheet shall be prepared in three appendix, 1, 2 and 3, and that I'll go that will see with the format also in this PPT. So further we'll discuss, and more columns may be required to be added in the appendix 3 we'll discuss, and the measurement also there will be in for numbers also, meters also, liters also, you know, separate records should be maintained if you are sending of job to job, contractor, converter, receipt. An enterprise shall be required to maintain cost record and other books of account in a manner which would facilitate preparation and verification of cost of transportation and other related charges and enter apportion to various products. So these are the three appendix which we need to make in a report of transportation cost. These appendix is to be certified and signed by the cost accountant only. Fine. So appendix 1 is the relate. If you have own fleet, then you should disclose it in appendix 1 with reference to these three notes. Cost of battery and tires and tubes shall to be used amortized over its useful life. Asset register should be maintained for determination of depreciation and amortization of cost, and separate cost sheet shall be prepared for different types of vehicles. And then appendix 2 is when shows a detail of hired fleet. When you have taken the fleet on hire, rent, lease, then the details to be disclosed in appendix 2. Last not the least, appendix 3, statement of apportionment of outward transportation cost to different goods and determination of average outward transportation. The cost of transportation which is directly allocated to a particular category of production, particularly suppose there is no need to split these particular transportation cost, and you know the cost is totally relatable to that particular production of that product. So you want to allocate the entire cost to a particular cost center. In that case, you have to prepare separate appendix for such transportation cost in appendix 3. And in appendix 6, more columns should be added with the different types of transaction, like said sale on specific rate basis, sale of scrap, waste, scrap, return from customer, goods sent for job work, goods received after job work. So these appendix should be added. This type of more columns should be added in the appendix 3. So this is the cost accounting standard 5. We'll meet you soon with another standard.